Friday, October 18th, 2024 at 12:05 p.m. Eastern Time, and now we are streaming. This is actually episode 1600, and it's I guess a coincidence that ElectionCast and 1600 Pennsylvania Ave, episode 1600. But yeah, we put it together at the last second. It wasn't planned, and I don't know how, through the grace of God or the lack thereof, we're all together. And yeah, so everyone listening, before we start and at the end, I always say, please go in the description. Please go follow all these guys on Twitter, their Substacks, their Patreons, their podcasts. Please go subscribe. Gold Goats Guns, Clusterfuck Nation. Please go subscribe. Give them a couple shekels for the free entertainment you get. And I don't know. I mean, it's where do you guys stand on this? In that it's I there I feel like it's leaning towards Trump, and I don't feel good about that. It feels something feels odd. Like, I feel like it's like Charlie Brown kicking the football. Like it doesn't seem like there's the
Well,
2020
of
there
course,
anymore. Yeah,
considering the potential for fuckery, it's
yeah,
natural to feel that something's going to go wrong. Sure.
yeah. It feels there's a great guy I follow, Mike Shelby
We
on
live? Are we
yeah,
live?
yeah,
Are
we're
we
live. Yeah,
okay?
yeah. There's a great guy I follow,
Let me
Mike
He's
see.
on
Shelby. There's a
Rumble. I'm tweeting it.
Yeah, you're good.
I'm
On
good.
Twitter, I've had him on before, former intelligence guy, and he put a long piece about this, about how he just doesn't see the groundswell of what was, because all these guys that I have on, the former special forces guys, they all look at it in terms of what they were taught, like guerrilla warfare. Like 2020 is so clear. You had multiple factions, they were clearly funded, they were coordinated, BLM Antifa. There was a steady rise in kind of stochastic hysteria, which allows for more pops to happen. You're less surprised when it happens. They're all like, none of that's happening right now. And it's very, very odd. And that's kind of how I feel right now.
Well, things are a little bit still. It seems to me that the Democrats are kind of throwing Kamala Harris under the bus,
Feels that
and
way.
hoping that they can dump some kind of a financial catastrophe
On
on
Trump.
Donald Trump and then come back in 28 and do their thing. But you know, I think that Trump would have been burdened with a financial catastrophe any way you cut it. It's just inevitable, and he's prepared for that. So he's going to have to sort of play a Franklin Roosevelt role to some extent in whatever's coming, if he's allowed to, or if he gets there, if he gets to the inauguration, gets in the White House.
It
Yeah,
feels
I feel it's a weird time. I was expecting more fireworks from these people, to be honest with you. We have 2 weeks left, right? But I
I
guess
think
She's
all
such a
depends on whether
limp
you talk about
target.
Israel, Iran, and then all and Ukraine, Russia. Obviously, those are fireworks. I'm not like trying to downplay that, but
yeah.
I was expecting more domestically than this. So
I
Kamala is
think
such a limp target.
Kamala and T. Diddy um, have made it impossible to pretend that they're competitive. I think I think that their choice would be, and if they cap Trump now, for example, I think it would be truly unbelievable. And so I think it's possible that, as you say, they're gearing up and basically hoping to regroup
I
after
think
Trump wins it. I Kamala, that Fox News interview
yeah.
was just horrendous. I was right before you guys came on. I was listening to Taibbi and Walter Kern analyze it. They nailed it. I mean, she did nothing well. She did precisely zero well in that
right.
interview.
There is
I
some
actually
So
didn't watch it other than a
I haven't
couple
watched it
of
either.
I
uh,
did. I
clips
saw
here
it.
or there, but and the last thing I saw before I popped on was the lead on Zero Hedge about the Al Smith dinner last night and the unbelievably pointed barbs that Trump threw last night that are going to all go viral, and they're all just they were like because they were comedy is truth plus pain. Well, the amount of pain on Chuck Schumer's face was yeah, that was he was really uncomfortable.
Chuck Schumer should have done better, right? Chuck really did poorly. But yeah, I agree. Trump threw out some cantaloupes, but those don't matter. It's like being deposed. It's what you give them that they want that matters. And I think Trump threw out so many barbs. And I read an article this morning that said that Kamala ripped her basically chief of staff for 30 minutes, had her in tears for advising her not to do that dinner, and then it's destroyed her campaign. Now, I got to tell you, if that really is true and that really gets out, that just shows you what a complete sack of shit she is.
Well, yeah.
She made the call. She made the call.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have changed anything. What was she going to do? She's going to go in there against Trump?
Yeah.
Oh, no, but I think she could deliver funny jokes. They'd have to be written for her.
Sure. Yeah, she could do it.
I think she could deliver good jokes.
I think Jim's right. I think they're looking at it and it's like, yeah, I mean, shoot Trump now, and then the whole thing falls apart, and including, you can shear a sheep many times, you can skin it all he wants. Or, I mean, if what is everyone, supposes that this is a 50, 100-year long march to global tyranny, they might just be saying like, hey, do you want to just wait 4 years? You just can't run again. Just wait, obstruct, do all the shit, but just it's 4 more years like that. I mean,
I don't see them being able to do all that shit again.
Yeah, I agree, Jim.
I think they're just gonna go, yeah, fuck it, let him run for take him for 4 years, and then who's after Trump? You could have anyone. No one is going to be Trump. Doesn't matter who the Republicans put forward. They can put forward a good person. They won't be Trump. Like there's an easier way out to fight.
Also, we don't know what deals he's been cutting to keep from getting assassinated. I can imagine him saying, look, this is our bright line right here. You can't pull us out of Ukraine. Don't even try. Or you could imagine really saying, look, you've got to play along on this on Israel. Right?
Yeah. I actually wrote a blog about this morning.
Okay. And what did you say, Jim?
Well, it was about the fact that, he's renowned to be a deal maker. That's supposedly the essence of his character.
Yeah.
And should he actually get into the White House, I think he'll make a deal. And the deal will be with the blob that they're going to have to cough up X number of sacrificial goats who are going to get prosecuted for their misdeeds. Big ones, big fish, goats, fish. Sorry about the mixed metaphor. But, like Mayorkas, Merrick Garland, Christopher Wray, Comey, Brennan, they're going to be told to cough them up, and if they cough them up,
who would you like to see go down?
He won't demolish their institutions. That'll be the deal.
Pick one. Who would you like to see get eviscerated? If you got to pick one of those five,
Brennan, top of the list.
Brennan.
But before,
although I think Mayorkas would be kind of a better demonstration project.
I actually hate Garland the most.
Well,
he's right up there too.
Yeah, Garland is a great choice as well, Dave. I agree. Yeah. But Brennan is so deeply embedded with the Obama fuckery machine that I think you get rid of Brennan and you start to, because it also sends a big message to MI6 and to the Brits. Like going right after Mr. Head Commie himself. That's a big one. I mean, Garland is a piece of shit. I mean, don't get me wrong, but like you have to go after the former head of the CIA, who is clearly a fucking traitor. And
doesn't have to be one or the other, Tom. Doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be both of them.
That can be both. But, I agree.
And I think that they're going to need some significant sacrificial victims. And the deal will be he lets the institutions live. He doesn't completely demolish them.
That's what I want to hear. As juicy as
but
all
then
the names
here's the thing.
Yeah,
he's going to go back and demolish him anyway.
Well, no, he'll stab him in the back. I'm more curious about what is it that what do you think is, so they're making all these sacrifices, which they will. They're all demons from hell. They literally fuck kids. There's nothing off the table. But like, so they're gonna put out these sacrificial lambs. They're gonna be juicy and all the headlines and whatever. What's the thing that he's saying? Like kind of the military industrial, like you get to kind of keep, like you can have Ukraine, you can have Israel, Iran.
No, he's not going to give him Ukraine. He's going to stop all this fucking.
Yeah, no, Ukraine is a. Well, then what's he has to stop Ukraine.
Well, then what's the deal he's making?
The deal he's making is he's not going to destroy Israel. He's not going to destroy this. No, he's not going to destroy the CIA, and he's not going to destroy the FBI as institutions. But he's he's going to gut them.
Yeah,
and that's going to be the deal.
Look, this morning, the big story in the financial markets is that I just saw this morning was that Tim Cook actually went to Trump and said, look, the EU's shaking Apple down for $17 billion for antitrust violations. And Trump's like, yeah, wait till I get back in the power. Like the EU is out of fucking control. Okay. Because they really do believe that they can shame, regulate, and tax everybody else out of existence in order to keep themselves alive. Like that's what they're doing. And this is, and Trump knows this. And so you've got Cernovich out there this morning saying it's time for us to leave freaking NATO. You've this. I think all of this is a big gambit ultimately to. Yeah, he's not going to destroy a lot of these things. He's not going to destroy Raytheon. He's not going to destroy any of these things. Everybody is trying to figure out who can get what piece of the smaller of the pie that's coming that Trump is going to leave us with. I remind everybody that we're re-regionalizing. The world is breaking up into economic blocks. I have a friend out in Arizona that like shows me pictures every day of the rate at which they're building fabs outside of Phoenix is off the fucking charts. In 5 years, PMSC is going to be in Arizona. It might as well be AMSC because it's not going to be in Taiwan anymore.
They don't have water there, though.
Taiwan's not going to matter. What's that?
You need a lot of water.
They're
for
building
fab
all this shit. It's all there. It's happening.
What are they going to do for water?
Whatever they have, I don't know. It doesn't
matter.
matter. That's what they're building. Okay. And so whatever they're going to do, it doesn't matter. What they're going to do is that. And that's what's happening. It's happening in Boise, Idaho. It's happening in a couple other places around the country as well. Where nobody's talking about it.
The two chemists will tell you that a byproduct, one way to get water, it's a byproduct of burning fossil fuels.
Yeah. And the nuclear power facilities and the light water reactors and all, like where
Google
they
just
like
rented out 7 of them. And AWS is building the small nuclear react SMRs and
as Dave pointed out yesterday, very astutely on Twitter, by the way. What if the whole AI thing is about restarting our nuclear power?
That's the only way you can
facility.
power it.
Right. And
if you guys haven't read that article by Leopold Aschenbrenner, Situational Awareness, it's like a 3-hour read. I'm also retarded, but the entire thing is like his whole thing is like there's always big hype around from the fucking cell phone to he's like, I get that. The thing he's looking at is every power contract is being sucked up right now going out 10 years because there's only one answer for that, and it's the AI superclusters.
Well, and look, the DoD just wants to make sure that they have their contracts in place for the next generation.
Yeah.
And, if Trump's going to end Ukraine and at some point we're going to deal with Israel and Taiwan is being, deprioritized, you have to like trump this stuff up, all puns intended, into a big, huge thing in order to, try and scare everybody to get the contracts lined up for the next, because that's their business model. So that's fine. I'm okay with, I'm not okay with it, but what I mean is that, if we have to have this thing and we have to, then at the very least, let's, if we're going to do that and not have wars, well, okay, I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? So let's see what happens. But
it sounds like
better than what we currently have.
It sounds like what we're talking about is a major reorganization in many power relations.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the BRICS. Yes. That's the BRICS for starters.
Yeah. And
the BRICS, you got 25 countries of non-trivial consequence who are saying for the first time in our memory, I'm not hanging out with the United States anymore.
Gold went over
Empire
2,700
or anybody else, or the European powers.
2707, I think is
gold went over 2,700 yesterday.
Yeah, and silver is going to break above. Silver's probably going to close today for at 32.50 in the cash market, and that's going to set up a move to 38.
Let's go.
Well, it's 32.76 on Kitco.
You got to watch. I watch the cash, XAG versus USA. I don't watch the futures price. On these, this is because there's better volume on those than depending on where you. The futures market is such a freaking mess. And
isn't it true that
CFDs and everything else?
That silver generally outperforms gold in a real bull market, and it hasn't been. It hasn't been outperforming gold for the last year. So what's your take on that?
Well, silver's an industrial metal. That's my take on it.
Well, also gold may be getting driven by central banks, and I don't think they give a shit about silver.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, it is being driven by central bank demand. Like central banks are 15 to 20% of the gold market at this point. Because again, it gets back to this re-regionalization of the global economy, and it's all going to be based on gold.
I did a podcast the other day and I got asked about BRICS and I gave them I'd spent a couple hours with Hanky, who's a currency junkie, right? So if anyone's going to talk about a BRICS currency, it's going to be Hanky. And I said, it's not about a currency, it's about alliances. And the currency is just a talking point. And at some point I got asked about, well, what kind of currency would they use? I said, well, if they decide to use gold, all they have to do is get some printing presses out, print some gold certificates, and they got their currency. So it's that simple. But there was mention, this was this Michelle Macquarie of Kitco, and she says, well, the BRICS are meeting, I think it was this week or this month at least, I can't remember where, 25 of them, the new BRICS, in Russia. How important is that? And I said, you just answered your question. We've demonized Russia with everything we got, and they're holding the meeting in Russia. It's not Iceland. It's not in the Netherlands. It's in Russia.
It's in Kazan.
Right?
It's in Kazan. It's going to be this. It's next week. It's the 22nd to the 25th. It's this year's BRICS summit. The Russians are the chair of this year's meeting. It's a big deal. And the BRICS pay thing was just announced this morning. And Vince, my good friend Vince Lanci is all over this like a rash. And he's like, here we are. Here's all the payments that you can make, all the currencies you can pay, and one of them is XAU. Gold.
Interesting.
Well, to tie it back into, I don't even remember if it was just you and I, Tom, or if it was all of us, but just kind of the general, I guess, I don't know, early lore of these shows was like talking about like it was a war between like the Wall Street guys and the communist pedophiles, the Jordan Belfort versus like the fucking Eyes Wide Shut guys.
Right.
Doesn't it? But it's like, doesn't it? It just, I don't know, maybe I'm just retarded, but like the entire tone right now, it feels like 2 years ago, it was like, we're clearly like, we're vaccinating everyone to death. We're going to World War III. And now it's just this weird, like, yeah, Kamala's probably not going to do well. And what fucking deals were made somewhere? Because those powers don't just stop because they lost interest.
Trump lived.
Well, it's really hard to.
It's probably.
I think it's really just that. This
really
thing was on auto fucking pilot until Trump got it in the ear. As opposed
we did
to
jump timelines. Timelines.
It's really hard to understand how Kamala Harris got nominated. I just don't get it. They had the opportunity when they shit-canned Joe Biden to have some kind of straightforward, clear-cut process in an open convention, which they could have even manipulated to their, to their desire, to nominate some, figure with standing politically, not just.
Kamala said it on Twitter. I think Kamala nailed it with one tweet. She said, "Oh, they're going to bypass another black woman."
Yeah.
And I saw that tweet and I go, she just beat the Democrats with her own stick.
Yeah, which is, I mean,
because Jim, it's funny. I think we've talked about it in the past, and for the last 2.5 years, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Dexter White and I have been handicapping this, going, Kamala Harris has all the cards. She's the VP. I mean, they have to go through her, and eventually
I think the transfer of the money was illegal.
I know.
I think
Joe Biden agrees with you.
Campaign money.
I think that's the least.
Yeah, I think Joe Biden agrees with you.
I think you could win a class action fraud suit saying that you raised the money under pretense.
Mm-hmm. Of course, you'd need a federal election commissioner that would go along with that.
Oh yeah, and we'd get one of those right away, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no,
I didn't say it was convictable. You notice that I said illegal.
Yeah,
and it's funny when I've been watching Joe Biden now for the last month or so, and I had dinner with a couple of people 3 weeks ago now, and it was brought up at the table, having spoken with some people who talked with some people in Washington. I don't know names or anything else, so salt all this to taste. But that Joe Biden is really angry about them stealing his money, and about the fact that Ukraine is probably going to collapse, and that was Joe's legacy. And when you start thinking about these people in terms of being mob bosses, I think it becomes very crystallizing as to who they actually are. And when I see Joe Biden pick up a MAGA hat, refuse to let his handler take it away from him, then he goes out and
Wait a minute. Pick
chairs
up
the
a
press
MAGA hat?
conferences.
This was a couple
He
weeks
picked up
ago.
a
He put on
MAGA
a
hat?
fucking Trump 2024
But
hat.
he put on a
thing.
Trump MAGA hat when he was
Oh,
doing a
fuck.
when he was
They're trying
doing
to
a
take it,
glad
and he was
handing
like-
thing with some kids at a school,
I think he's
and then
pissed.
took the MAGA hat, put it on, and then when his handlers tried to take it away from him, he's like, "No," and he held on to it, and he walked into Air Force One with it.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think he's angry.
I missed that.
I think he's
gotta
Okay,
find
yeah,
that.
no, this is really important. And then after that, he does those couple of pressers where he shows up and ties all of his bad policy to Kamala Harris. Like, it's very clear that they stole Joe's money. They fucked with him and on Hunter's sentencing by pushing it till after the election so he can't pardon Hunter, right? And then, and then he is.
Can he
I'll be
not
honest with
pardon?
you, I think he
Can
made a
he
deal with
not
Trump
pardon? Can he not pardon someone until some legal event has occurred?
until they've been sentenced.
You
Until
have
they've
to,
been
you have to be
sentenced.
guilty.
No, Gerald
You have-
Ford pardoned Richard Nixon before he was even indicted or before there
But
was any
in-
legal process at
This
all.
is
I think that's right.
He pre-pardoned
that's right.
him. Yeah,
but
I'm sure of it.
Pre-pardoned.
I was a
But-
newspaper
but-
reporter when
as
that
far as this
happened.
is concerned, he has to be sentenced.
So it
He has
could be
to-
legally he didn't pardon him, but it basically
He
was a
pardoned
statement.
Richard Nixon legally, peremptorily.
Okay. Well, I figured that's why, by the way, people say, why didn't Trump pardon all the January 6ers? And I go, because they had not been named yet.
So
Or
another, in
And
addition,
again, and
Well-
Jim, the circumstances of what happened with Nixon may be different legally than what's going on with Hunter Biden. Okay, there's again, different laws, different jurisdictions, yada yada yada. So,
I do have a thought about Biden, though. I wonder if he doesn't manage to pardon himself and his family before January 20th. I have this fantasy that Trump will pardon Joe Biden, but not his family members, and leave them subject to prosecution. Frank and Jim and the wives and daughters who are all laundered money through their bank accounts, and Hunter, and they'll all get and leave the bitter old Joe Biden to spend his last days and hours thinking about how he fucked over his own family.
I
Do you
don't think
think
Joe
Trump
cares about his
hunts
family
by-
that much.
Do you think
To be honest
Trump,
with you,
you think Trump is bothered by Biden as much as he is by the Democratic institution?
no, I think.
Well,
he thinks- I think he thinks.
I
Biden's
hasten to
bad.
add that's a fantasy of mine. It's not necessarily
That's right.
what Trump thinks or what he would do, but it would be cool to hang Joe Biden out to dry like that.
it
He'd
would
be like that character in The Road to Perdition, played by Paul Newman, one of his last movies,
Mhm.
where he plays an
Did-
Irish mob boss,
did you
living in
Did
this
you guys see that
twilight
clip?
world.
The other, sorry to interrupt. Do you see that guy's clip a couple days ago of like Biden talking with Obama or something? It's the most.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, they
It
had
really
some
starts
heated
to make
argument.
me think that I've been duped because he didn't look out of it at all. He looked like Joe Biden, like VP
He
Joe
looked pissed
he
Biden.
looked
off,
out of
yeah.
it to me.
I almost
He looked like he was going like this.
okay, maybe. But so
Well,
another thing is
you notice how Joe Biden is now starting to look a lot like Jimmy Carter. Do you see that Jimmy Carter photo?
yeah,
You
no,
go,
he's
I don't know if that's pre or post autopsy.
Yeah, I thought it
No,
was. I thought really that he was a
that man's
cadaver.
dead. But this is
Well,
this
I
is
felt
not
awful sorry for him, though. I mean, imagine making that long journey and the last, 5 years of your life, you're like
You're just a basket
walking
case.
basket case zombie.
yeah, no,
Oh gosh,
it-
terrible.
This isn't
Uh,
negligible. 4 days ago on Instagram, AOC, the horrors unfolding in northern Gaza are the result of completely unrestrained Netanyahu government, fully armed by the Biden admin, while food aid is blocked and patients are bombed in hospitals. This is a genocide of Palestinians. The U.S. must stop enabling it. Arms embargo now. That's a non-negligible defection from the kind of democratic establishment. You might say, well, it's pandering. Sure, it's like 3 weeks to the election. This is not a time in that you step out. This is this is something that you do 6 months ago or a year ago. This is clearly like they don't think Kamala's going to win, so now they're going, let's just start getting points for whatever. This is not something you
I
do
don't know.
as-
It sounds to me
they've been-
like
that
She's
wing
never
of the
said this in
Democratic
the
Party's
last year,
been
though.
been on a talking point for a year.
But
And I
she's
think
gone
that
out of her
there's-
way to say it now.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not something you do in the days going up to an election.
Well, the goal is to tie Trump to Israel and the Democrats to Palestine in order to keep a particular part of the base on board and to keep the center of the country out of Trump's camp. That's the way I've been reading that whole thing for, well, since October 7th last year.
Okay.
To be honest with you. So I don't see that as being from that perspective, I think it works. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe I'm not saying you're wrong to think that AOC isn't like trying to, make sure that she wins her House seat, because I don't think she's got anybody credible running against her, so it won't matter.
Yeah.
So
from a tactical point of view, it's just business as usual for the Israeli army to root out these Hamas stations that, in schools and hospitals. That's where they put their guys, and that's where they put their operational headquarters. So they go into the schools and hospitals, and they go in and destroy them. That's what they do. Hamas shouldn't use their own people as human shields.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. It's just
the whole thing is a mess.
Well, it's very unfortunate.
It's terrible. And what bothers me more than anything else is that everybody involved in this, of all of these conflicts, be it Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Gaza, Israel, Lebanon now, it's all in service of much bigger, more cynical geopolitical stuff. This is all about fucking collateral, folks. This is all about energy and
I'm not
natural
sure that
resources
Israeli
and everything else.
is.
It has, I mean, all the rest of it is just cynical grafting at this point. In my, it's the way I've been reading it, and
I think that's much more true of the Ukraine operation than, from our point of view, of our operation in Ukraine, not Russia's operation in Ukraine, which is an entirely different story. But
Right.
I don't think the Israeli operation is about world money per se, although to some extent it may be about oil, but not really the international banking collateral issue.
Okay.
I don't think.
Well, what I would
I
say, what I
think
would say,
Israel's just really got to, it's a small nation of what, 9 million people. It's surrounded by enemies, and its enemies are aggressive and hostile. And the most hostile and aggressive are Hamas and Hezbollah, and they're going in and punching them out. And
well,
I don't think it's much more complicated than that. And
I
to some extent, I think the world wants people to think that it's more complicated than that, so that, because they, want to punish the Jews.
Hmm. I don't know if it was just I don't know if it's
I'm,
just been my own. Go on, Tom.
Go on, say it. Go on.
What I will say in service of that, and again, I understand that part of it. I really do, and I'm not discounting it. But there's another side of that, which is that we opened this conversation with the BRICS, and the BRICS now have control of all the maritime sea routes, in effect, around the Arabian Peninsula, and it is about oil, and it is about collateral, and it is about City of London and their ability to make money ensuring shipping lanes around the world, because that's how City of London makes its money today. The City of London doesn't make money pretty much any other way other than currency arbitrage and insurance. That's like 90% of City of London's business, and that's 30% of British GDP.
And yet, it's mysterious why we can't take out these, semi-Stone Age people, the Houthis, who are, getting rockets from Iran, I suppose, to make this mischief. Is there some reason why we can't locate where these missiles are stored and where they're being fired from and just blow them up? I mean, why is
we
that
did
so
send
difficult?
B2s out the other day. We did send B2s out.
Yeah, I know. And what was the result? Did we put an end to that, or what?
Wait,
We must have
we
some
sent what out?
intel on that.
What'd you say we sent out, Dave? Or Tom?
B2s. B2s.
B2
We sent out
bombers.
B2 bombers to take out the Houthis like 48 hours ago.
Fucking love that stuff. But I think why they don't, I think on the grand strategic level, those things are probably convenient to go, all right, it's like a warrant waiting. Like there's an armed group, they've done some. I think
It's absurd though. Nobody believes it. The Houthis are going to defeat the world
No,
shipping.
of course
It's
not. But
fucking
what I'm saying is,
absurd.
if you leave it there, there's probably like a shelf life to this shit. It's beyond anything we
There's a
think
shelf
about
life to
because
all
we're all
these things.
no, because we're normal people who don't look at shit this. But the same way they look at like, like,
Speak for
hey,
yourself, Tommy.
what?
Speak for yourself.
Speak for myself. All right. I think at that level, at like the military level, they probably look at like behind closed doors. It's like, well, hey, if they ever actually do anything, we'll do X. But right now, this is a convenient inflection point to do X, Y, Z, and you take it right off the shelf and go, we could do this, that, or the other thing with the Huth. I think they do. I think it's like I think it's like waiting to send in a SWAT team at some place that's been, monitored by intelligence services for a month. Like you're probably waiting, and if it's politically expedient to do something now or to do something later, I think at that level it probably is like a shelf life. Like, hey, we'll call on that when we want.
Well,
Maybe
I
I'm
don't know. This has
cynical.
been going on for like 8 months or more, and
So is Ukraine almost over? That's my
I
opinion.
think
But
so.
I don't know. I think that's gonna keep
I
going.
think I think the Russians are going to roll, just roll through, and it's really more a question of what they leave behind and what kind of rump state Ukraine is going to be. The final result of it is going to be Ukraine is going to be neutral, a neutral place, region, even if it's maybe a country. Now, I think it was Mark Rutte, the former PM of the Netherlands, who's now the head of NATO or something like that.
General
What the fuck
Secretary of
is he?
NATO, yes.
Secretary General of NATO. He came out today or yesterday and said Ukraine is going to be a member of NATO. And I thought, what is this guy smoking? You know,
there's
that
no chance. It'll be
that
World
ain't
War
gonna
III if
happen.
they try to
So
do that one.
they're so deluded. And so that's the final outcome is going to be Ukraine is not going to be allowed to be a burr under the world's saddle.
Well,
Ukraine was a
this is
fucking place for 75 years. It was not a problem for anybody, you know?
So let's unpack that one step further because it's very clear that what's being pushed here on the Ukraine Russia front is coming from the EU and City of London. Meanwhile, the Pentagon is telling the State Department we can't fight this war even if we wanted to. I was talking to this weekend when I was at the Mises Supporter Summit. I was talking to a guy and retired lieutenant colonel in the Air Force and current pilot, and still has huge. And I was talking with Steve Murray yesterday on Coffee and a Mic, and I brought up the same point, which is that he told me flat out, he's like, all the O5s and O6s, that would be the full bird colonels and the lieutenant colonels. And Tommy, let's go back to when I was first on your show 3 years ago, and I said the military's actions here will be decided by the full bird colonels and the lieutenant colonels. They're all saying we can't fight this war. They're all passing it up the line to Austin and to all the political jackasses who are running who are at the top of the brass of the Pentagon. They're saying we can't do this. We don't have the supply chains. We don't have this. We don't have the armament. We don't have blah blah blah. We can fight a war for 2 to 3 weeks, and then what?
Yeah.
So now, with that in mind, when I said that to Steve Murray yesterday on Coffee and a Mic, he was like, absolutely. And I also then said, and if you have no idea how much power as a lieutenant colonel I had to shelve operations by saying, look, we can't do it. And so we're not going to do it. The generals say X and we say, well, no, it's not happening. That's nice, but it's not happening. So that is, I think, what we're all feeling right now is that we've had a quiet, almost unremarked on coup or just I don't know. It's what's the word I'm looking for? Quiet strike, right? Quiet quit by that level of officer down in the U.S. military, saying this can't happen. So you better start figuring out a way to get out of what you just created. And if you look carefully at what we've been seeing over the last couple of months, that's exactly what we're seeing. So we're seeing half-assed support we're seeing the State Department go over there and say, we're going to give Zelensky long-range missiles to go attack St. Petersburg or whatever. And Austin's the next day is going, no, we're not.
Yeah, no, the fuck we're not.
Did we gain
Yeah, but
anything from Ukraine? Is there a hidden gain there? Because right now it appears to me as though it appears to me as though the United States' biggest task is to pretend like that war was never facilitated by us, and to pretend like the 600,000 dead Ukrainian soldiers are not our fault,
Yeah.
and to pretend like pretend like it just didn't happen, or pretend like we won or whatever. But to the extent that it goes to some point where Putin gets what he wants, and I'm pretty sure that he will get whatever he wants when this is over. Then the question is, do we beneath the surface, did we gain, or did we completely fuck that up?
I think
We humiliated ourselves for one thing.
We certainly did that.
We
I'm
did
trying to figure out if there's a hidden gain that we don't know about.
We demonstrated that there is a new kind of warfare, a new kind of technological warfare that we hadn't quite anticipated. That we didn't anticipate that tanks would be made completely obsolete. We're beginning to learn, well, I think we already knew that the navies were, to some extent, the carrier groups were obsolete. And so we learned a lesson, but I don't think that we have digested or figured out what we're going to do about the humiliation. And that gets to Tom's question or point, which is, do we just, or maybe both of you guys, can you just walk away from this? It is an enormous humiliation, but it's a humiliation for Joe Biden, the neocons, and Tony Blinken and the State Department. And that regime is going to be gone in 90 days.
We hope, yeah.
You could launder the end of it.
I mean, that's part of it. I think the other part of it is
so it wasn't just a cabal of guys. The entire U.S. propaganda machine was 100% anti-Putin, pro-Ukraine. Ukraine's a democracy, the whole argument. So it's that was not just a partisan fuck up. That was a national scale fuck up, and there were very few of us who said this war is NATO's fault.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a guy call me yesterday and tell me I was nuts for thinking that.
Remember, like, we're talking about. Okay, I've talked about this in other podcasts. I don't know if I've talked to you guys about this, but my good friend Alex Craner did a bang-up job of tracing the last 3 or 4 months worth of maneuvers by City of London and the British government and the Bank of England, and how much they're on the hook for, because they've guaranteed to the IMF tens of billions, if not more than $40 billion worth of Ukraine's debt, which they have now defaulted on. After negotiating a haircut, and then Zelensky then turns right around and says no, and then Fitch downgrades them, and it's like all this stuff. And I absolutely recommend everybody go read Alex's Substack on that. He and I did a podcast on it. We did an hour and a half trying to explain all this. A lot of people went into this thing saying, we're going to win in Ukraine. We're going to get all the collateral that's in the Donbass and the Sea of A's off, and we're going to use that as a means by which to break up Russia, and we're going to get all these tens of trillions of dollars worth of future cash flow. It was a dumb idea. I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm not saying it was a good idea. I'm saying that was the plan. Putin preempted that by going first and putting us on our back foot, and then everything has been a war of attrition since then. And now all you have to do is run the clock out. And that clock was a 2-year moratorium on Ukraine having to pay back its debt. Now you have a whole bunch of people who were guaranteed trillions of dollars in future cash flow that are angry. And they're trying, and the people who guaranteed all that, the people who set this fucking thing up, some of them are in the State Department. Some of them are at the DOD. Some of them are on Wall Street. A lot of them are in City of London, and a lot of them are in fucking Brussels. And they all did it. And it was all part of the fucking Mother Weffer plan. Because you kept talking about how Ukraine was going to be the model country in the future.
Yeah.
Of this whole WEF, you will own nothing and like it shit. Like, it was all right there. They told you everything they were going to freaking do. And Larry Fink is in there now, like arguing. Larry Fink and Bill Gates this morning went to Keir Starmer.
Oh, there's a guy.
Did anybody miss this?
I didn't see that. I missed that.
I did.
I didn't.
My people were like all over that shit like a fucking rash this morning.
What do you think Larry Fink's message is?
He's a
The message is
douchebag.
turn the machines back on. Turn
Where's
the machines back on, like trading places. Get those fucking people, get those
Where's my-
Americans to go in there and kick some fucking Russian ass because we're all going to go broke.
Where's
It's
my
not
money?
going to happen,
I
though.
firmly believe the Bank of England is on the verge of bankruptcy.
From the get-go, this thing was logistically alone a foolish enterprise.
Hold on.
You know,
Well,
the idea that-
it's right up there with the idea
Was
that
it?
we were going to pay for the Iraq War
Hold
with
on,
Iraq's oil.
Hold on. Let me answer Dave to what you said. What is the purpose of all? Well, first of all, like as with
What
all
did
the
we
things.
gain?
Yeah. So let me
What's
just.
the win?
So one, and it's not a huge one, but all the aid we give them is only money they can spend on our defense contractor. So in a way, we kind of just doubled our own DoD budget, which isn't. It's our own money, so it's whatever. That's one thing. Second thing is through like BlackRock, right? It's like you now have Ukraine has to pay us back. We're not giving it to them. Like they have to pay us back for every bullet they bought. Well, that's another thing. And then this is from September, I think, of this year. Remember when Lindsey Graham said, so Ukraine is a quote gold mine with quote $12 trillion worth of critical minerals. They're sitting on 10 to $12 trillion of critical minerals. They could be the richest country in all of Europe. I don't want to give that money and those assets to Putin to share with China. And that's from June 13th of this year. That's
Well,
from,
what makes the people who want all this shit think we're going to get it now?
I'm not saying this. I'm back to what Tom's saying. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm saying
Well,
that
that's
was
what
the
I'm
shitty
asking.
What
plan.
their
I'm saying,
motivation
so we
was.
wrap
What
up-
they gain
plan.
now. What they gain now, Dave, the saving face. Back to Jim's point.
Yeah,
Now,
no, that
forget
was
the
the
space
plan.
saving shit. I want to know what we gained. I
Nothing.
don't want to
That
know
was
what
the plan.
the narrative will be. Yeah, I
we
get
haven't
all
gained
that.
anything but humiliation. That's what we've gained.
That's
We-
that's what
And-
I see.
Yeah,
Because
and
we're
I'll
not
tell
going to
you,
get the resources. Putin's not going to let the West come in and make Ukraine pay them back by giving up all their resources.
Of course
dude,
not.
they literally, if you listen to these people talk, they all kept saying the same thing. When we force Russia to lose, we're going to make them pay reparations. And
I know what the narrative was. I'm asking, did we gain?
Absolutely not.
No.
Okay,
it's
I
been a
just
lot.
want
It's
to
been a
make
complete
sure
loss.
there's not a hidden gain.
Not only did
Now,
we not
There's
gain
probably something
anything,
hidden. There's
but
probably
not
something
only did we
hidden.
not gain anything, but when the Western banking system craters, we're going to be so preoccupied with our losses that we'll never think about Ukraine again.
I also think we lost the dollar on this one. I think it was going to go anyway,
system,
but
there
I
you
think
go,
we lost the dollar.
You
I think
lose
the
the dollar,
dollar
you're going to
is
lose.
now
You're going
on
to
a-
lose the banking system.
I think there's
Right.
Here's the
I
thing.
think
What
the dollar's
I'm
been
going to push
sent
back just a
sailing.
little bit on all of this and say we did gain something. We were being sold out. We as people, as Americans, we were being sold out by people at the top of our government for the purpose of doing the bidding of old colonial powers of Europe. That's the way I've seen this, the way I've framed it for 3 years. And I think what we gain by losing here is that we don't wind up in World War III and we don't wind up in a situation where we're on a terminal path to dollar devaluation and all of it. I think we've lost a lot, but ultimately what we gain is what we didn't actually lose. If we walk away from this with just our tail between our legs, that's our best case scenario, because the win is the win is to keep the bond market, to keep the US bond market as one organism. Because the goal
I was just going to ask you,
split the country and destroy the bond market and destroy the dollar. That's been the goal the entire fucking time. And for the EU to outlast us in a war of attrition over financial assets and the role of capital flow. That's been my interpretation of events for 3 years, and I haven't seen anything other than that the entire time.
Do you think that this is an opening for Donald Trump to do something that he talked about in 2016, which is
by Greenland,
a default on sovereign bonds, but especially default to foreign holders of our sovereign bonds?
Maybe, but I don't think that's what he's going to do. I think he's going to threaten that because it's one of his Zopa things. He likes to do that. Like he likes to talk about, hey, I'm offering you this, and it's nothing, right? And then he's going to try and negotiate down to half that, right? I don't think he's going to. I think what he'll do is he's threatening massive tariffs, is what he's doing.
Yeah.
And notice who is complaining the most about the tariffs. It ain't China. It's the EU. It's the European Union is the one complaining the most. I'm telling you, between Powell at 5%, Trump threatening fucking tariffs, like the EU's fucked. And they all know it. And that's a
But we-
good
they-
thing. That's the source of all this shit.
They're
that we're
also
talking about.
largely
Screwed
self-fucked.
energetically. They're also screwed energetically.
Yeah, exactly. They're self-fucked. I mean, the Germans have stood by for 2 years while we destroyed their energy supply, and now they're sitting watching their industry whirl around the drain.
And BRICS is not a European-friendly operation.
Yeah.
No. And they control all the world's, and they control most of the world's oil, other
That's
than the
right.
United States and Canada.
Right.
So
Mexico.
So the bottom line is it
oil
does look
production,
like Europe
that's on
got
one
their ass
side of it.
kicked.
Yeah, no, I've been saying this for 4 years. Who's the weak man at the table? The one with no collateral. Who's the one in desperate search of collateral for the last 10 years? Europe. How are they trying to do that? By making energy production more expensive for everyone else in order to normalize, quote unquote, tax harmonization and all the other bullshit. Like they're trying to saddle us with carbon credits, okay, in order to normalize this shit. The United States was like, you know what? Fuck you. Like Trump said, like, fuck you. If Russia's the enemy, then you don't get to buy your oil from Russia. You got to buy it from us. But if you want to buy the oil from Russia, that's fine. But don't expect us to pay for NATO. That was literally all Trump ever said. And that was beyond the pale, because what they wanted us to do is they wanted us to pay for NATO and for them to buy cheap oil from Russia and then use our armies and our blood and treasure and our boys to go fight their war to break up Russia, to take all their oil at 10 cents on the fucking dollar. This is not hard. People have been doing this shit for 400 fucking years. Like, it's not tough. Like, it's not we're all trying to make this way too complicated. Like, as Jim said earlier about Israel and Gaza, whether I agree with that or not is irrelevant. It's the same framework.
Yeah.
It's a simple thing. It's a war for collateral, and they have it, and we don't want them, and we want to extract. And the old colonial powers of Europe, who've always gone around the world looking for everybody else's shit, but they only want to pay 0.1 pennies on the dollar or on the euro, when the rest of the world is saying, well, can we at least have 5%? And they're like, no, absolutely not. We're Europeans and fuck you. Like, that's the way they act.
It is just human history.
That's simple.
Like,
Like,
in
fuck these people.
2024.
Like, let's just watch them all implode in their own.
I think that's a critical thing is that
and all the rest of it. Fuck
we're watching the approach of a really kind of politically violent threshold in Europe, especially in Germany, where the new opposition of the AfD is really just surging ahead, and the old establishment is pulling out every stop to persecute people who associate with the AfD and basically turning themselves into a new Nazi party without the swastika. And what I think we're going to see is, we're reaching, it's like 1848 in Europe, where we're going to enter a revolutionary change turnover in Europe of regimes, because they're not going to last. Olaf Scholz's coalition's not going to last. The Dutch are in this strange situation where they elected an opposition a majority that can't rule, that doesn't have its own prime minister, right? They didn't allow Geert Wilders to become the prime minister. They stuck in their CIA, the equivalent of their CIA chief. The French every day more and more hate Macron, and he is more and more trying to persecute the conservatives who oppose him, and eventually he's going to be overthrown. And then you have this immense migrant problem in Europe that is just a terrible irritant to the political tenor of all those countries. And something's going to give, and something's going to break, and it's going to be those governments.
And what I'll say is, and it just quickly, it's back to Tommy's point originally about, hey, why don't we just wait these people out? Why don't we just wait till 2028? No. Why don't they just wait us out and then regroup the Democrats and what I call Davos and all these people? Wait us out until 2028. They can't. The political imperatives, the trends that you just identified in Europe, they're happening here in the US. Yeah. All the people that they bought with Diddy and Epstein and this, that, and everything else, all those people are now 80 or dying off or worse. Like, so it's all, I've always said that it's like just in time. They're running out of time because all the assets that they put in place, they're past their depreciation curve. The point of where their depreciation curve is dropping to zero. They're in the terminal phase of the depreciation curve.
Mhm.
And
Their
so
sell
I
by
think that
date.
that's
They passed their
Yeah.
sell by date.
So
Yeah,
what
that
breaks
makes
first
sense.
in Europe? Is it their currency? Is it their
yes,
markets?
it's the currency in the bond markets. Without a doubt.
And when do you imagine that's gonna, we're gonna see the rupture there?
When Lagarde and Yellen run out of money to prop up the markets.
Like this whole idea that, anybody with any sense would be trading in Ukrainian bonds, debt.
There's
I
no.
mean, it's insane. And the expectation that you're going to get $40 billion back from Ukraine,
Well, they
the
sold
brokest state.
Argentinian century bonds at 6% at one point. So the
Yeah.
insanity is not that rare in
And
this
that
world.
regime that did that is gone.
How about
Yeah.
this? Why don't you replace the word Ukrainian bonds with German bonds at
Yeah.
2%? Okay. Like, go look at the
Point
German
taken.
10-year and tell me why it's trading 180 basis points below American debt of the same duration. It makes no fucking sense other than someone's got their thumb on the pulse of that market.
Yeah. It's not because so many people want it.
Right. There's no market there.
Yeah.
Like, and we have to realize that this is one of the things we've been writing about a lot. We've been talking about a lot internally, and I'm actually writing about a little bit this month. Is this idea that we have to realize? I did a podcast with my friend Chris Sullivan, who's a hedge fund manager and a market maker, and he's like, guys, like these markets are fake and gay. Like it's all about order book manipulation. What we see in the markets today and what we think of as liquidity is everything is really just order book manipulation on a daily basis. Like I go back to thinking about the beginning of COVID, right? At the beginning of COVID, there was remember the big OPEC plus meeting. I've given this story multiple times, but let's think about at the beginning in March of 2020. The big OPEC plus meeting happens on Thursday, and it's reported on Friday that they're not going to cut production. Oil's trading about $80 a barrel. Right? Monday morning, after that happens, oil opens at $40 a barrel for a 500,000 barrel per day expected cut from what the markets wanted. That's bullshit. Like under no circumstances would that cause a halving of the price of oil. And yet it happened. How did it happen? And then what happened to the price of oil after that? And then eventually it goes negative. And then they give us the big pandemic and da. How fake are these markets? Really?
Hey, I got to ask
how fake is the liquidity? And then remember that in 2020, we were at 1% or 1.5%. Now think about where we are, 5%.
I got to ask you because no one's paying attention to this. There's a big country in Asia called Japan.
Mm-hmm.
That's a major player on the stage. First of all, they're in a very weird situation over there with their markets, their currencies, and their debt. What's going on with them, and how do they relate to, for example, your UK scenario?
Sure.
Because they're
Let's
in
put it
there.
this
I
way.
mean,
I have talked about Japan an awful lot, actually, Jim. It's just you and I haven't spoken in months. So I've been banging my shoe on the table about Japan for a while now. I've said many, and I've watched since the day Kuroda widened the band on the yield curve control on the 10-year back in December 2022. I'm like, Japan just entered the game. For the first time in 35 years, if this is a poker game, Japan finally stopped playing Texas Hold'em with their hole cards face up. They finally turned them face down. Okay. And then, like, for 30 years, the Japanese played Texas Hold'em with their hole cards face up. Okay.
Oh, round eye.
What's that?
Round eye.
Make a stop park reference of me, dude. Harks my vibe. But since then, it's been a steady move towards Japan normalizing their activities in the marketplace. The election of Ishiba at the at the top of the Liberal Democratic Party is that's a watershed event because Abeism and the neoconservative Abe wing of a nationalist wing, or not nationalist, pragmatist wing of the Liberal Democrats, because remember, Japan is a one-party rule, are out of power, finally. That would also be I don't know, I guess you call the IC blob, US IC blob wing of the Liberal Democrats. There's a very good blog called, I think it's Understanding Japan, something like that. It's written by Ira Harris's son Tobias, which I absolutely recommend everybody subscribe to. It's worth every penny. You'll get an insight into Japan that most people just have no clue about. And I've been learning a lot about Japan, and I can tell you that the Bank of Japan has always been the Fed's wingman. So if we had globalists at the Fed running the Fed, we had globalist monetary policy from the Bank of Japan. So if we needed to put under the market to make money cheap, Japan was there. We don't have a globalist in charge of the Federal Reserve. I'm sorry. Jerome Powell is not. If he was, we'd be at the zero bound, folks. So we should expect the Bank of Japan to start acting as our wingman again, because under that regime, and that's kind of the TLDR on all of this. Japan will be there to continually shock the markets as necessary. And the goal is to defund or make much smaller the offshore dollar markets, without a doubt. Because we can't afford to keep sending dollars out and get nothing in return. We have to start rebuilding what's happening with the actual economy of the United States. And I don't believe for a second that Wall Street gives a shit where they invest their money. They can invest it domestically or they can invest it overseas. They're going to just go wherever the yield is best. So watch all of this very carefully. I've been watching all the major players on this, Diamond, all these people for years now. And what I can see is the same. I keep seeing the same thing over and over again. We're watching the world regionalized. Back to Dave's point about the BRICS.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're going to break back up into regional economic blocks. And then you have to ask yourself, whoever has the collateral is going to win. And we have collateral. The BRICS have collateral. Japan is a swing state, and they will go, and they're going to chart a slightly more independent path. And they've got a long road ahead of them, but they have a way out of where they are. Because the Bank of Japan has both stocks and bonds on their balance sheet. They've got massive currency reserves. Like, they have a lot, and they can rejigger that entire economy if they want, and they will. But
they don't have any of their own oil. That's
their biggest problem, which is why they had to strengthen the yen, and why they had to give up, start normalizing monetary policy. It was finally time. So I think the statement by the Japanese that 162 on the yen to the dollar, that was their line in the sand, that was a big deal. And we need to respect that. And just, I'm waiting for the next leg down. Right now, the dollar is gonna go through a bull phase, and watch the Bank of Japan carefully to see when they intervene, and then watch the interplay between that and the euro. Watch the euro yen cross. Watch the euro pound cross, guys. I'm watching that like a hawk right now. That's a huge one, because there's a big story about that. I don't want to hog the microphone.
Wait. The pound's at about $1.30 now, and the euro's at about $1.12 or something like that.
No, $1.85. The euro's now $1.85.
And you expect them to cross?
The euro pound cross is sitting right around 83 cents, 8.83 euros to the pound. That's a level that the Europeans have defended since Brexit. And it was designed to devalue the pound and then trap the Brits in such a way that they couldn't get the benefit of the weaker pound versus the euro, because no one was able to invest in Europe, in the UK after Brexit, in order to destroy Brexit. That was always the goal, and they did that and they did. It's a huge story. I mean, if you really stop to think about all of this with Trump and the trade deal and getting rid of Trump and Biden and all of this stuff, it was all designed to keep to force Britain back into the UK, back into the euro. And what you wound up with was a pound that lost 25% of its purchasing power in 2016, that never recovered, and in order to turn the entire country against Brexit.
And yet they're playing all these games. They're playing all these currency games, and yet a nation like Britain, as you yourself said about 20 minutes ago, really has no economy beyond the insurance business in the city of London.
That's right. And Brexit was supposed to bring that back, but the currency arbitrage the currency devaluation and the lack and the fact that the Brits could not cut trade deals with anyone because the Biden administration said no because they were working for Europe. If Trump had been in power in 2020 to 2024, Brexit, he would have given them a trade deal. Okay, we would have seen reinvestment in Little Britain, in the Midlands, and British and British industry.
Is it too late?
What happened
though?
to Liz
they
Truss?
have no
The minute
industry
she said,
left.
think of it this way: minute Liz Truss said, "Hey, we're going to open up drilling on the North Shore in Scotland." 48 hours later, she was gone. There was a gilt crisis. BlackRock pulls their fucking bids on the gilt market. The pension systems all go busto, and the Bank of England has to. This is all Alex Craner's work, and the Bank of England has to bail out the pension funds with tune 160 billion pounds, which, by the way, the British Parliament is on the hook for to pay the Bank of England back for, and they still haven't done it. Like this is absolutely a destruction of the British middle class. In the same way that they're trying to destroy the United States middle class and the German middle class, they're bringing everybody low. They believe that they can create a war to bring everybody low, get everybody pissed off, start World War III, default, and then reset the system after the war is over. No different than what they did after World War I. Same fucking playbook.
Do you think that we're going to be preoccupied in our country with internal violence and street violence and the kind of things that Jim Rickards has been hollering about after the election and going into the inauguration in 2025?
Depends on how much money they still have to buy rent-a-mobs.
Well, I don't know that it doesn't seem to me that Kamala Harris is spending much of that $1 billion campaign fund that she has. It doesn't cost that much money to rent an Antifa mob, really.
I don't
No,
think
it
she
I mean,
has- I don't
a
think
few
she has
$100,000
What are you
maybe.
saying, Dave? What are you saying? I mean, you've been very quiet while I've been like hogging the microphone. I hate
This
that.
is kind of outside my skill set, the Forex markets. So,
Right.
so I don't know. I don't know what happens to Kamala's war chest after she loses the election. That's a fascinating thing.
They might not want to spend any of it because they're going. It's like a fucking NFL team that's lost the first 12 games. Like it's bad. I don't think you're allowed to say let's throw games. I don't think you're. But I mean, there are teams that are just like, let's just go 0-16, and then if they get the first draft pick, they might be going. Kamala is so fucked, and we've got like $1 billion in that chest. Don't spend a penny of it. Humiliate her. Who gives a shit? If they don't think they're gonna win and they're not willing to go all in and like release a bioweapon, then your next move is, well, then let's save as much as possible.
Hey, so if we have this theory that
Fair.
the Democrats are now basically throwing her under the bus and
Start shifting start
regrouping for
And I think they want to
2028.
throw her under the bus and make sure she never reappears.
it is
Oh,
kind
I
of
don't think
funny
there's
if-
any chance that she will reappear because she has no real skills.
no.
The skills that she had, were the skills of an ingenue, and she's not an ingenue anymore. That's
Isn't
politically
Ingenue a streetwalker?
yeah, well, a political plaything.
You seen the
a
pictures where
plaything
she
for-
actually looks like she was a hooker? I'm
Not a
not
good
convinced
hooker.
she wasn't a hooker.
Yeah.
Yeah, she might have been
It'll be
a
so fucking
high-class
funny
hooker.
if Trump beats two women.
If Trump
It'd be so funny if Trump beats a second woman.
Well, the
Right.
other thing that
They-
would be
they-
really
they-
funny
They hate
would
him
be
so
if
much already.
The P. Diddy story is different than Epstein, and I'll tell you
Yeah.
why.
Why?
And you've been diving into all that stuff where I haven't. I don't know.
He
if
is
Tom-
he is our resident expert.
I'm sitting back and listening to this.
I'm
one
the
'cause I haven't-
resident expert on pedophilia. Yeah.
And I don't mean that as an.
The-
I think it's great that you understand it. I know you've gone deep in it.
I
It's what
don't
runs
understand it.
it's what runs the world. It is. It's
I
up
just
there with
understand
nuclear
what I
power.
don't know.
Okay.
Unlike Epstein, who ran an airtight operation that slowly sort of eroded at the edges and kind of got out of control briefly, P. Diddy ran massive orgies with no adult supervision. So I'm not sure they can put the P. Diddy story away because there's way too many victims, way too many drug-addled people who are just going to. This is not like, okay, what are we going to get Ehud Barak to say? He's easy to control. What are we going to get Bill Clinton to say? He's easy to control. right?
Yeah.
But what are you going to get? These rappers, they're going to throw each other under the bus. There's the prostitutes, the kids, the Justin Bieber's. Then the interesting question is, who could be caught in this trap? And there's two names that come to mind that are most entertaining to me. Who was a prominent girlfriend of a prominent Black Hollywood elite type who might have been at those parties? And the answer is Montel Williams' girlfriend, Kamala Harris.
Woo.
Ooh.
What if all of a sudden Montel and Kamala showed up in that raucous mess? The second thing is Bathhouse Barry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if they took out Obama and Harris in the P. Diddy explosion?
Oh,
Now that would be get out the popcorn moment.
my poor liver.
I know. We'd have to have a four-way.
I can't. There's not enough whiskey in the world for that.
We'd have to meet in some neutral place like Iceland and do a four-way podcast for 3 straight days.
Oh,
Dave,
God,
is that a coffee cup bigger than your head?
This coffee cup turns out to be 20 ounces, just like a Vente. The reason this coffee cup is so great, I have 4 of them, is that it's well insulated.
Oh.
I have never tipped it over.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go.
Right? So you work at your desk. How many times have you sploosh some shit on your desk?
Fucked up. I've almost destroyed this computer so many times.
I destroyed a keyboard yesterday while having lunch.
If you go on Amazon and you search plastic 20-ounce plastic mugs, you'll find these guys. And I had one from a convenience store and I bought 4 more.
I go full retard. I go cap and everything now. I can't be trusted.
I love this one, and yes, it's easy to knock over, but it's perfectly insulated.
But this guy never gets knocked over. Now, you don't take it in the car with you because you have to put it on the floor because it needs pretty much a helipad to put down.
Fair enough.
So,
back to the pedophilia.
Yeah.
I prefer coffee mugs to pedophilia, to be honest with you. At least,
I mean,
one is
so
actually
it's conceivable the P. Diddy story will catch some really spectacular people. And in particular, you start saying, okay, where, and one of the things they talk about, the guys who are focusing on P. Diddy, is they say this is a region of society that the deep state, the blob, couldn't get to easily. And P. Diddy kind of got there. So they could get to the politicians, they could get to the Hollywood elite, sort of, but P. Diddy got into the Black rapper community. And so then the question is, who else could be caught? And there could be some spectacularly prominent characters.
I'm less inclined to think that because we still haven't gotten any real. I guess I don't know. I guess you did say that though. But
takes time.
That was more buttoned up.
Takes time.
I think it's less that we'll see it, and it's more so that you'll kind of see the patterns of real power shifting. Like I don't necessarily think we get to see it. I think it's more so like you see where it just kind of seems like they're throwing Kamala out, and I think it's more so that like the unrushed mass.
All I need to do is see a picture of Kamala and P. Diddy and Montel in some party, and I got my answer.
Well, but
do you suppose that's already happened? That somebody has seen that photo, and that's one of the reasons that.
Well, there's a fake out there with there's a fake out there with Kamala and P. Diddy.
Uh-huh.
I think it's more so that
it is a fake.
I think it's more so that like we see the shockwaves in our as opposed to. You see the actual picture. I think you just kind of see Trump going ahead in polls, or
it's sort of like the earthquake. You feel it, but you don't actually see.
That's what I mean. It's like
moving.
It's more so like you're never gonna see those pictures. What you are seeing is like Kamala getting skewered on on Fox, or Trump getting backed by Elon, or kind of.
Well, the other thing about the pedophile story, what's really pretty noticeable, is that the victims of the networking, which there's truly tremendous numbers, usually talk about people who are dead. So someone like Kathy O'Brien has been speaking for years saying, Gerald Ford stuck it up her ass repeatedly. They will talk about the dead guys. It's like in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, there was all sorts of cryptic statements made that really pointed no fingers at anyone important, and then they sent her away, and so they made sure that the trial really didn't spill any guts. It's like Hunter Biden's laptop. They charge him with all the things that they could charge him that had no connection to his father. Hunter Biden's charges are all un-Joe Biden connected.
What do you suppose happens when there's
charges.
a new DOJ?
I party for 2 days just to get Merrick Garland out of there.
But Dave, you don't drink. So how are you going to party?
I think they're so deep statey that I just don't think that. I just don't think they're going to go after each other. At one point, Bill Barr looked like an okay guy, and then he turns out to be not. And, there's just you see pictures of Bob Mueller. They said he was the man, and then you find by the end he looks demented. You see pictures of Bill Barr with John Kerry in prep school, and the whole system is so corrupt. Here's one that scared the shit out of me the other day. This really troubled me. Two things. One is there was a woman who testified against watching a senior politician bang a 5-year-old girl because he was facing that or was told these other 3 kids right in front of you were going to get murdered. So
that was supposedly Bernie Sanders.
And that's right. It turns out she named him. She said it was Bernie Sanders. He was crying. She said, I've never seen anything like that. So the question is that real? No way to know, right? But there was one that freaked the shit out of me, and that is a guy named Janda who was in the Bush administration, some low-level undersecretary of something, but he was an orthopedic surgeon.
Dave Janda.
Janda. So Janda gets hauled into an office by a guy as soon as he gets inside the Beltway and says, here's what I'm going to tell you. Never, ever, ever go to a private party. And the reason is, and they said, even if it's the vice president's house, which I think was Cheney at the time. And they said, because you will wake up with a hangover, you can't remember anything, and there'll be a Polaroid on your chest with a 5-year-old in your arms. And I realize that even if you're the most honest guy, if you make one little mistake by drinking a drink that someone gave you at a party, and next thing you know, they got a Polaroid. No matter what you scream about, no matter what you say, you're toast. They've got you.
I think that's probably.
And that scared me. That's because that would be trivial to do. Trivial.
No, absolutely.
So it doesn't require moral weakness. That's the key.
You get anyone here. You can't have a beer. You wake
my
up,
coffee, right? I gave myself a roofie. I'm going to wake up tomorrow not knowing what we talked about.
And yet, no, it's that I think that is what runs it all, which is also why.
But I always had this image that they corrupted people and the people knew they were being corrupted, and that one just totally changed the whole. And by the way, there's a movie about that. There's a movie somewhere out there where some cop, they drug the shit out of him, and then they film them doing porn shit, and then they own them. And I'm going, Hollywood tells the truth.
You should read The Franklin Scandal by Nick Bryan.
I did.
Oh, you did? Yeah,
I actually did a podcast with Nick, who's really very precise in his analyses.
That's a book. And he says that I've listened to an interview with him, and at the end of it, people are like, if this is so dark and so fucked up, like what chance do we possibly have to fight?
The problem I have with Nick is Nick is so by the book in terms of if he either knows it to be true, he will not speculate.
No, he won't. No, he won't. And he didn't in this show either that I watched with, but he did say something that I always actually bring up all the time is, he says, I don't entirely know how we'll fight it, but by diagnosing it, we can at least know what the evil is we're up against and move forward from there. And that's why I said earlier, right. I said they'll do anything. I said at the beginning.
I asked him about Pizzagate. Pizzagate.
Yeah, no.
And I believe Pizzagate's real. I believe Pizzagate's real.
Here's the central mystery of this thing to me is, what is the attraction of having sex with children in the first place?
Well, those are pedophiles, but the ones who are doing this, it's not that. It's a power mechanism. It's power projection.
Well, I understand that, but I don't understand
of the few that are pedophiles. I don't either. I don't either. It's it's people that are serious killers.
There's a reason that mature men and mature women engage in sex.
Why did Jeffrey Dahmer eat
reproduction? And the second reason is that we're programmed to appreciate sex with mature people.
Well, given your response, what it tells me is you're not a pedophile, so I have to go delete some tweets.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, okay.
But I gotta call off a couple tips.
I'm not, and I'm not leaving
it's
this
a
podcast
mental.
early for the
I
life
believe
of me.
it's a mental illness problem. It is some
Yeah.
form of mental illness. The
And
other thing I think was also true is that every human being needs neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin. After you've made too much money, after you've done everything you can do, you still need them.
That's
You
and
don't
that's
all
what
of a
Nick
sudden get to
Bryan's.
some nirvana point where you say, okay, now I've got all the money and all the power, and therefore I don't need any more neurotransmitters. So I think you start groping. I think your brain starts saying it's sort of like, sex, you get kinkier and kinkier because the other shit just doesn't cut it
Well,
anymore.
that is what Nick Bryan says. He
I don't
goes,
know.
I
I'm
think
76 years old, and I find it very hard to believe that you have to get kinkier and kinkier. I mean, it's
Well, no, but
you know,
you're getting your neurotransmitters from other mechanisms.
from
Yeah.
a normal, like a normal, healthy life.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
These
you
are
do.
do
people that are just
podcasts, you
Yeah,
get to
it's
rail
yeah.
on these guys.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey,
No,
Jim,
it's
you don't have infinite money and infinite power.
I
yeah.
don't.
Right. And neither do I. And neither the four people in this,
So it's the
in this podcast
pursuit.
or
I
most
have
of the people
infinite
listening
money.
to it.
It's
Do
Yeah.
you?
The world is my bank. I just don't have access to it. That, by the
Outstanding.
way, is what they say about Putin.
I didn't mean to put words in your mouth or take money out of your
Well,
bank.
they say
but-
Putin's the richest man in the world, and then you know what they say? They said the money's not in his name, and I go, well, what the fuck is it then?
That's
Right.
Tommy's actually the richest man. You don't know my associates, the Rothschild.
Well, as I like
I've
to say, I
never-
live on
I-
Cougar Lake, but
The,
I'm
the,
not
the
a
point being is that
fishery.
yes,
I don't have the PIN
the-
code.
well, to Dave's point, we all get our neurotransmitters from a certain
No,
from
and-
certain activities, and and that's the way that works, and some of us get it, and have to get them in a variety of different ways, and some of them we do through
But there
coping
is a certain
mechanisms
kind
for
of
past
stock,
trauma and all the rest of it. So.
there is a sort of stock programming that most human beings are born with.
Most
That
people.
is, it's like the normal programming of Toyota Camry that they're all the same programming. You don't find pedophile
Make 8 billion
Toyotas
Camrys.
or homosexual Toyotas.
Almost.
No,
I
but
mean, I think it's the same with zebras
Heterosexual
and
Toyotas, on the other
it's the
hand,
same with
they're like a dime a
zebras
dozen.
and
no, but what
and-
you're
and
saying, Jim, is you don't
lions
see
and
that.
tigers.
Make 8 billion Camrys, and you'll probably see a couple of them act really weird. But at a low enough percentage, when multiplied by a large enough number, you will see them. And then,
But now we're in a situation in which is like the United States has turned into the whole 1980s daycare
McMartin
child
scandal.
molestation
McMartin scandal.
hysteria.
That's the McMartin scandal.
The
Yeah,
McMartin. It's like the McMartin scandal has now taken over the psyche of the entire collective psychology of America.
Well, it's
It-
argued. It would be argued. Someone like Whitney Webb might argue it is that it's always been there. But see, now one of the problems we have is we have the internet, and so I think in some sense it was more peaceful before we had it because they just had to hide the shit. Now they can't hide it, and so now the knives come out.
yeah,
Right. So if you can't hide it, then you have to brutalize anyone who mentions it.
yeah.
And that has produced in many ways a more authoritarian world than them just hiding shit. It was easier when we thought Kennedy got assassinated by Oswald.
Yeah.
Nowadays, if Kennedy got assassinated by Oswald, within a half an hour, Twitter would have found all the shooters and the guys on the knolls. And
That's what we saw with Trump, is it was happening in real time. Like
so do you think? Let me ask you this question: do you think Ruth was actually an attempted assassin? The whole thing looks fake to me.
Oh, the second one?
The second one looks totally fake.
I think there.
Well,
I think
what,
there- I
they
think
stuck him in a hedgerow for 12 hours just to
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
What?
Well, no. But the point is his origin story is all screwed up.
no,
Right,
he's
his
got
origin
intel
story is
right
Well, the
got
now.
money
so
part
many
of it is
crazy
very
com-
screwed up.
Well,
the
no,
money
but
part.
his connections and his
I think he was
the
smoked
fact
out.
that there's videos of him in floods in Hawaii and videos of him doing other things elsewhere. He has this presence in the world from the past
Yeah.
that
He's
just
Zelig
makes
like.
no sense.
Zelig, nice.
Yeah.
I think he was probably smoked out. I think there was probably a mole in the Trump or Trump whatever close circle because you don't just. It's one thing if again if you're going after me, you can go hang out in the bushes for a week straight until you see me. You don't get on to the billionaire ex-president's golf
But
course.
he couldn't have even known. He couldn't have even known Trump was going to be playing golf.
That's what I mean. And not only that, but it's after an assassination attempt already. I think they
Right.
probably smoked that out. They're like, who the fuck else is, who knows what's only say, because they said at the last minute, Trump decided he was going to golf. He like canceled something else, and that guy's there.
Well, Dave, do you have any idea what he represents at all?
Well, he was single-handedly recruiting Afghans to fight in Ukraine, and it happened to actually look kind of logical, except for the fact that it wouldn't be some guy from Hawaii.
Well, I
So
think the
he looks deep
Ukrainians were
state from head to
laughing at him when he
toe.
was doing that. The Ukrainians themselves were considered him a
But
crank.
but guys from Maui don't go to Afghanistan, and he how do you recruit? He was offering to pay him. He didn't have any money. The whole story is goofy. It looks to
Hmm.
me like an intentional distraction.
I think,
Why? They would manipulate the Overton window, Dave. I'm
Oh
shocked.
my God, they'd never do that.
Getting
I,
the
th-
vapors over here. Like fucking
I
fuck
think,
me. Like
I think the first attempt, and then this, and I think we're kind of seeing like they tried twice. They tried two Hail Marys, and the second one was already kind of half-assed. I think we're gonna see them just kind of dribble out Kamala and sacrificial lamb. They're gonna save as much of the war chest as they can. They're going to they're gonna try to, I don't know, stop Trump or obstruct Trump where they can. I don't think they'll go summer of love again because again they don't need to. All the stuff they did in his first term was to destroy his first term and to stop a second term. The
mm,
calculus is entirely different now. What's Trump? Trump's like fucking 80 now. He one term left. There is, and like what you said earlier, Tom, they can't just wait out because there are a lot of things that they put a lot of money in. But
mhm.
again, I think that if this
Especially considering. Well, the other thing I would say, Tommy, is that especially considering the team that Trump has put around him,
He's
yeah,
got
like the
powerful
team that
deputies
Trump
who
has
are
put together.
waiting beside him who are pissed off and determined and energetic,
I think we might
between
have is
People
Tulsi
not
and
committed to
Musk
what they're.
and
but
Kennedy.
but you also have a lot of people in DC who are just total psychopaths and sycophants. I think a lot of people are going like they're taking off the whole World Economic Forum climate change get vaxxed mask and they're going fuck it like nationalism's in. They don't give a shit. They want money and
Sometimes
power.
elites circulate. Sometimes
Yeah, that's
elites
what I
are just
mean is
overthrown, and
I don't think you need
it
to
just happens.
I don't think
It's
you need to
like
take
I
over
said,
all of them.
1848.
It's like
1840. Did you remember? I don't know if your listeners know about 1848.
what
1848 was like a almost universal revolution in Western Civ. Didn't affect the United States much, but all throughout Europe, regimes were overthrown, kings and monarchies fell, prime ministers were bum rushed out of power, and it was a big thing, and it happened all over the continent. And
I kept hearing
I'd
reference
be, I'd be interested
1848,
to
and
see
I
what
didn't know
happened.
what
Was
it
happening.
was. I didn't realize that's what it was.
I'd be interested to, as always, I would be interested to see what was going on in the effectively the stock and sovereign debt markets at the
well,
time
what
of
was really
the
going
versions
on,
of that where they existed at the time.
what was
Because
really going on was that the Industrial Revolution was reaching a pitch where so many people were leaving the countryside and moving to the cities that it really destabilized not just urban life, but the political life of each nation that was involved.
Mhm.
And to some extent, our technological revolution has made changes like that. I had a weird experience yesterday. I had a documentary film crew, or not a crew. I had a documentary guy shooting yesterday, and he took me down to the Empire State Plaza in Albany, New York, which is this immense, pharaonic, monumental ensemble of buildings that was started under Nelson Rockefeller. And they destroyed about, I don't know, 50 acres of the south end of Albany to put it up, destroyed the city. Uh, and it's this vast podium with four office towers
Didn't they
on it.
call that Rockefeller's Folly?
Well,
Didn't
whatever
get
they
that
called it.
name?
Yeah. It has many elements of it which are weird. One of them is that, of course, Nelson Rockefeller was a modern art collector and he had a lot of money to do his collecting. And this, in a way, was a sculptural collection that was designed to be seen and enjoyed from the highway for its magnificent, heroic, pharaonic, colossal scale. But it was also, they had moved most of the state agencies into these buildings. So we were shooting there yesterday and talking about it on film. And one of the things we noticed in the parking lot below the podium stage, which is this big, half-mile long granite and concrete structure that the skyscrapers are on, in the parking garage was practically empty. And I don't know if any people are even showing up for work in this gigantic complex anymore. I had the feeling that the state was doing what they could to maintain the thing and keep it sort of spick and span, looking like it was still being used. But I think it's become completely obsolete and it's an empty shell and the habits of mailing it in from COVID are still in force and people are not coming into the office, so this thing's not being used. And what it said to me was this entire New York State regime, of Kathy Hochul and the woke Democratic Party and all of this stuff is like an empty shell now.
Mm.
Just saying.
It's
Yeah, no, it's a
old
great
power,
observation, Jim.
old guard
It's-
inertia.
It was very
no,
peculiar.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it sort of goes hand in hand, by the way, with collapse of now almost 60 colleges, which is the beginning, not the end by any
Mm-hmm.
stretch.
Speak more about that, Dave. I
The
hadn't heard this
collapse
yet.
of malls, the collapse of commercial real estate. And so we've
Yeah.
got, your books from 20 years ago that described, sort of the collapse of this bloated suburb and stuff, is now playing out, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
No,
don't.
it is fascinating. Well, we are living in this is one of the things that I've been thinking about for a long time now, which is that we've reached a moment of the institutions. People have lost all faith in their institutions, right? And this is part of it has been the natural part of the cycle, and the part of it, of course, has been designed, and we've been pushed towards this. So, like, okay, we want to get rid of these existing sclerotic institutions and replace them with something better, right? The problem when you do that is when you invite chaos like that and you invite that kind of apathy, people don't always do what you want them to do, right? And the people who have and so they we're going to wind up with new institutions, and if you looked at the young kids, they don't believe in any of this crap anymore, and they're far more gleeful about like destroying the previous bigness. I used to write about this all the time. That one of the things I hate is bigness. Right? I don't like big things because big things and big ideas and big complexes and big institutions. The individuals are lost in that, right? And the communities are lost and all of that. And so that's part of what we're seeing. We're seeing it in the media. We're certainly going to see it in politics, and we're going to see it in all of this. That gets down to this question of going back to the beginning of the conversation about the BRICS and all of this other stuff. Like, we're seeing it at the global level. They've pushed for globalism, and now we're getting a push back towards, regionalism and I mean, the Bitcoin guys like talk about decentralization at a to an almost crazy degree, and the libertarians to a lesser extent at this point. But it's true and it's happening. And then the question is, that's incumbent upon all of us is to say, okay, what are we going to replace it with?
Yeah.
And that's where we have to. That's what we have to really be focusing. I think all of us in this space now that claimed like, okay, we've described the problem. What are we going to replace it with?
Well, there are a lot of things in our life that are hollow inside, including our money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that our money, and the things that purport to represent our money in financial
Mm-hmm.
instruments, they're empty.
Mm-hmm.
And what I sort of fear and think about is that we're going to end up we're going to end up in a an era of tremendous capital scarcity, where all the money that we thought was going to be there to do the repairs that you're talking about and the replacement of stuff that you talked about is not going to be there, and we're
And
going to
then we start
find out
getting
the
the birth.
hard way.
It's fine. Well, the question then, and another way of saying that in the economist terms, is say that the division of labor is contracting, and when the division of labor contracts, then the demand for money contracts. It's a very important point that people forget about, right? Because really, when the division of labor is expanding and it's becoming more sophisticated, then you have this need by the market. The market drives the creation of and it all has to do with that and resolution and a variety of other things as well. Like when you have a money that cannot be subdivided any further than, in this case, say the penny, but you're creating things that, and you've got comparisons that need to happen within that economy, which are less than a penny. How do you resolve that without there being some kind of arbitrage?
Well, when you
Unless,
say the
unless
division,
of course, you inflate the money supply in order to affect that. You can either inflate the money supply or increase the resolution of the money. You can't, it's one or the other, or you can do both, clearly. But when you have people who refuse to allow that, the resolution to increase, then we have one of two things are going to happen. So what we've seen is the capital roll up through the central banking system into the oligarch class, and now
well, those are abstract
they've created
operations.
valuations that are insane, and so that we have to get a collapse. We have to get a collapse, and that is also going to be a contraction of the division of labor.
You're describing abstract operations with money. And but when you introduce the idea of the division of labor, what that prompts me to think is occupational niches and the complex networks of
Yes.
interdependence that come with them. And one
Yes.
of the things that's most obvious and visible in our culture right now is the destruction of those networks. Like
Mm-hmm.
just the small town that I live in, and maybe Dave, the town that you live in is relatively small American upstate town. When you destroy the commercial networks and replace them simply with one Walmart, and you no longer have those networks of
In our
jobbers.
dreams, actually, the days of fighting against Walmart are now quaint, because
Oh
now
yeah.
it's you want Walmart to stay because you don't want to have to just go to Amazon.
Yeah, but the point is that you have this population of people who no longer have any role in the economy
Mm-hmm.
when they could have and did formally have a rich array of roles performing as people who distributed goods, produced goods,
Mm-hmm.
brokered goods, many, many roles in a complex economy have been reduced to this sort of simple, ultra simple ecosystem that really won't support the people who occupy the terrain of our
Mm-hmm.
country. And so
Mm-hmm.
you have this population lost in anarchy and purposelessness. Who don't even have the understanding that they could seek a role in a complex economy or make it happen for themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
so, nature is kind of punishing us right now by pushing us through this bottleneck that's going to create a lot of hardship for people. And then, when those large structures, I think, do fall in of their own inertia, we will, emergently rebuild more complex ecosystems for economic life. But it's going to be a very, very hard transition.
It's like the tall trees burning down and ending up with
Exactly.
succession. The other thing that I've been pondering is the fact during COVID we lost 3 million small businesses, I'm told. The small businesses are connective tissue, sort of glue for the very large corporations. They fill in the interstitial
Mm-hmm.
spaces
Mhm.
where where, okay, you can go to this large corporation, but you also need a guy down the street. Be able to go into some hardware store and ask the guy questions. And now it's very hard to find that person. Usually you find some guy with purple hair and a nose ring who couldn't tell you the difference between a screw and a nut. And you can't get the help. And so you can't help but notice that everything that you used to take for granted as just kind of being there and working now all of a sudden is just kind of missing.
Yeah.
And
the big corporations,
there's things that do work well. Something like Uber is a fantastic addition to our system. Uber is great because all you need is have your phone, no cash, no nothing, and boom, it comes wherever you are. So that's a great addition. But for the most part, depending on just corporations, which is what COVID essentially pushed us towards, is a potential real problem.
Yeah. Do you think that's over, the COVID thing, or do you think that there are going to be repercussions coming out of that?
Well, in that Trump rounding up the bad guys, I'm not sure that he would round up the Faucis because they kind of were on his team, and so there'd be a splashback on him. He has
Bobby
distanced
Kennedy
himself.
might force his hand.
He might, and I hope he does. But Trump has been distancing himself from the vaccine, and I presume that's because he's been talking to Bobby a lot. And Bobby's been filling him in, saying, by the way, Donald, and I don't blame Trump at all, actually. He got called upon to do something fast and aggressive, and he did it better than, put it this way, he did it better than Kamala would do it, is my guess.
And he was surrounded by these people importuning him.
That's right. Now, other people have been duped. Like a great story that's like that is Jeff Sachs, who simultaneously was sort of dealing with Ukraine and dealing with a committee to find out where the virus came from. But he had Daszak and these guys on his committee, and he says it took them months to figure out that they were lying their asses off. And so there, and I think Sachs is a little gullible in the sense that I think his default setting is trust.
Yes.
And then he really gets hurt. Like he was the guy who told Russia, when the Berlin Wall fell and everything fell apart, he says there'd be a Marshall Plan. Now he thought there'd be this big plan to help him, and then it didn't show up in the miscalculation he did. And it's his own admission was that the only reason we had Marshall Plan is because of the Soviet Union existing. And so we did not have a foe we had to beat with a special plan. And so we just let him rot. And I think that was a mistake. I think Sachs was correct. We could have been in there intervening in a very passive way to prevent the Bill Browders of the world from raping and pillaging Russia. By the way, I've been reading about FDR, and Bill Browder's grandfather was all over the Soviet Union 2 generations back.
Oh, really? Yeah, you found that. You found that.
His name.
I always know that Browder was a fucking commie.
He was a total commie, but Earl Browder turns out to have been a total commie too.
Oh yes, absolutely.
I think it's
one of the first things I ever did in this early on in this. I remember when I was doing regularly doing the fault lines on Sputnik Radio with Stranahan and Garland Nixon, Lee Stranahan and Garland Nixon. Lee turned me on
one with those guys once. They sort of disappeared from
Lee turned me on to the whole Browder story, and then he got me involved with Alex Craner, and that's when I sat down and chatted with that, because Alex wrote a great book about Bill Browder and taking apart Browder's book, like bit by bit by bit.
I read Browder's book, and it didn't make sense to me, even though I wasn't yet onto Browder's shtick.
Right.
There were parts of it that just didn't add up. I go, wait a minute, there's something.
Alex's book is a great takedown on this. It's hard to find. It's called the Grand Deception. I think it's banned on Amazon. It's banned in a couple other places. You can find it. You can email Alex, and you can probably get a copy of it from him directly.
So in the small world, it turns out Alex and I have been in a doctor Zoom group together for a number of years. So it's just this digital world is not that
What's the chatter there?
No, it really isn't. It's not. And I think I'm doing I do a show with Alex regularly. I think I might be doing one tomorrow. Or I don't know.
Dave, what's the chatter in that doctor's Zoom group? Are you guys still talking about COVID?
It's really shifted more to a geopolitical authoritarianism slant. Hardly anyone who went through the group who didn't come out of it darker than shit. I mean, there's
Right.
almost no one who came out of it and said, "Oh
Is
yeah, they just made
Cariardi
some."
in it?
Is Cariati?
Yeah, Cariardi
Aaron
in it?
Cariati. I believe he went through. So there were the regulars, and then there were the guys who passed through. And so the passers through were a very impressive group. It was RFK, Senator Ron Johnson, you name it, they were there. And then there were some regulars like Jerome Corsi was a regular, some NSA guys, a guy named Stephen Coughlin, who turns out to be very impressive. He was the
Yeah, I
Pentagon
caught him
expert.
on Ferris.
Right. Well, he was on Ferris because I put Ferris onto him.
Uh-huh.
And so it turns out that he is the GOAT in terms of Islam in the Pentagon. And he tried to tell the Pentagon, hey, you guys got to wake up. You got to understand Islam better than you understand it. And they basically told him to fuck himself. And so
Who are you talking about?
A guy named Stephen
Coughlin.
Coughlin.
Got it.
Very impressive, very mild-mannered. All the intelligence guys I know are actually pretty tame in terms of their delivery. Not all of them, but a bunch of them really are these kind of bespectacled, wonky guys. And another guy named Lee Slusher, like 4 tours of duty in the Middle East somewhere. And again, I know a sweetheart of a guy who's a Canadian intelligence guy, and so they all the Dr. Zoom group went full authoritarian. They just at no point did they buy into the idea that there were honest mistakes being made.
Mm-hmm. When you say they went full authoritarian, you mean
they bought the authoritarian model. So some of the guys think, they're trying to knock the world population down to 1 billion. And I go, look, here's the problem with knocking the world population to 1 billion. Everything will break. We're not. If it was knocked down to 1 billion and the billion was in a region of the world, you might be okay.
Right.
But you will be hunter gatherers real fast if you knock it down to 1 billion. And so that just doesn't make sense to me. That's never made sense to me. But
unless you believe that the robots are going to replace a lot of those people, and I think
but someone's got to build the robots, right? I mean,
the robots are going to build the robots, Dave. Don't you understand?
Yeah, I know.
We don't need people. This is the way these people are insane. Obviously,
I think it's
and there could be that, right? I mean, there could be that. I did a kind of a pseudo deep dive on World War II this year. I say pseudo because a deep dive on World War II is 20 lifetimes, right?
Right.
I read a half a dozen books that were kind of revisionist historians who were looking at World War II saying, let's actually look at the real facts. And it's a very scary narrative where what you discover is that the narrative we got starting in social studies is just a total load of crap.
What's the outstanding difference?
The outstanding thing is that Stalin owned us the whole way. The whole way. FDR was simultaneously culpable and gullible. FDR's right-hand man was a guy named Harry Hopkins, who was a complete Soviet spy. Harry Hopkins stood between FDR and anyone who could get to FDR. He was like his right-hand man, like Cheney was to Bush Jr. And Harry Hopkins made sure that every goddamn move they made was in Stalin's best interest. We gave, for example, you wouldn't know this, Lend-Lease program. Ben Steele's book, which I copy edited actually, so I read it very carefully, talked about the Lend-Lease program bending Britain over a barrel, right? And so we fucked Britain with the Lend-Lease program. We tell the story like we're their best friends, but we weren't in the war, but we did everything we could. No, we fucked them like dogs. Yeah. We set up deals that made sure they would never be powerful at the end of the war. That came out of Steele's book. Then you find out that FDR basically got authorization to do anything that he saw was appropriate. He gave the Soviets probably 20 times the amount of armaments he gave Britain.
Yeah, we gave
them. And then you find out, Then you find out, even past the war, it's argued that we actually gave them so much shit that allowed them to become a superpower after the war.
Yeah.
Now, it turns out also that every time some U.S. soldier or something would end up in Soviet territory, they'd send him to a gulag. He wasn't an ally. They all went to, if a pilot was flying, like some of the Doolittle guys ended up in gulags in the Soviet Union. And so at the end of the war, the narrative was that, maybe a dozen or two were missing. And, this is unfortunate. There's nothing we can do because we don't want to upset Stalin and this and that. You find out the number's 20 to 25,000. And we left them there.
Yeah.
And then what you find out is that Stalin gave us nothing back. He gave us nothing. He every step of the way. And FDR is actually quoted as saying that if we give Stalin everything he wants, he will probably cooperate with us. And that was his assumption. But he also, I think, was guilty. I don't think. So then I read books about FDR and the New Deal, and you find out the whole New Deal was this gigantic grift. So the New Deal gets a bad rap from the right because they say it's a welfare state and it's not free market and this and that. And you can debate that all you want. But FDR handed out all the goods to his cronies the whole way.
What were the goods?
I mean, the goods were all these WPA programs and
grants
AA
to build
programs.
shit,
build shit,
national parks,
all that money,
federal
all
works
that
programs.
money. And at the end, Morgenthau, who was,
but wait a minute, at least they had something to show for it.
No, they had very little to show for it. It turns out. They really had very little to show. We see it because that's what's visible. What you can't see is that what they did to business. So they put in price control so that guys are going out of business left and right. They're saying, look, we can compete in the marketplace if you'll let us cut the prices back. And they wouldn't, and so that they'd go bankrupt.
Is this during the war itself or just the Depression?
The Depression. So I went back to the Depression. See, now in the middle of all this grift was Harry Hopkins. He shows up again, and I'm going, holy. So FDR, turns out the guys who wrote about FDR before he became a politician said he was worthless at everything he ever did. He was lazy. He was a good for nothing. And then he finds out he's politically good. He lied in ways that would make Biden blush. He was a compulsive liar, and his administration had to kind of keep covering for him, but he'd promise it and then just say, fuck you, I'm not doing it. That was yesterday, today's today, that sort of thing. But he was a compulsive liar.
Was someone running him besides Harry Hopkins? Or was Harry Hopkins running him?
Well, Harry Hopkins was basically a Soviet handler, so it gets a little tricky. And I did a podcast with Dinah West, one of the authors of one of the half dozen books, two of the half dozen books I read. And I asked her some of these questions, and some of it's not known. The idea that when the Soviet Union fell, the archives opened up and we learned what happened is complete fiction. Mm-hmm. And I knew it because I said, okay, how big are the Soviet archives? What, 1 billion pages, right? These are going to be monstrous. Now, the question is, who wanted them open? The former Soviets? I don't think so. The Americans, which all the dirt had been collected on? I don't think so. And so when I asked her, why didn't we get our soldiers back? She said, well, I think what happened is they were going to be used as bargaining chips, and it got too far along, and it got embarrassing. And so they said, okay, we don't want to hear about it. So apparently for decades after that, people would get out of gulags and say, yeah, there's Americans in there. There's guys who've been in there for decades.
I mean,
and so here's the bottom line. So she's Jewish. I said, one could make the argument that you could debate who beat the Germans, but I don't think you can debate who won World War II, and the answer is the Soviet Union. We ended up no better off than we were before, except for the rest of the world was flat, and so by comparison, graded on a curve, we were ahead. The Soviet Union grabbed a huge land grab, and they were able to do it because we let them do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so the bottom line is this narrative. And so and I reached out to Stephen Coughlin because Wes mentions Coughlin in her book in a passing comment about the president. and I happen to know Coughlin, and I really had great respect for him. And so I reached out to him and said, did you read American Betrayal? Is it credible? Is Diana West credible? And he said, oh my God, is she credible? He said, after her book was written, she used to be on Lou Dobbs twice a week and stuff. And he said, the neocons just savaged her. Now, the reason is pretty obvious to me. What is the high point of the American story, right? Besides the founding fathers. The next high point is World War II. We won World War II. We're the good guys, right? If you destroy that narrative, the dominoes start falling fast.
Well, and don't forget that on top of all of that, the neocons are, they're the grandsons of Trotsky. Politically.
Right.
Like these people are all communists.
The CIA came from organized crime, came from Meyer Lansky and these guys.
I got like at the end of the day, like I was like, I've always thought FDR was a commie. Like, but it's interesting.
But he was
maybe
a kind of
FDR. It was a chief of staff. Yeah, it was the chief of staff. That's what that's the TLDR on this one, right?
But FDR was so complicit that you have to ask the question, how much did he know he was doing? He was doing bad stuff.
Right.
And it's really disturbing. It's really disturbing. The things he did and then Sean McMeekin, who turns out to have written Stalin's War, which is a deeper book. He spotted a communication between Wes and I somewhere out there on social media. And he said, you got to read Stalin's War now. So I read Stalin's War, and he went into the gory details of all the things, the way Stalin's stuck it up our ass repeatedly. And
it's really funny. You're thinking about, you're saying,
but I didn't know any of this shit. I didn't know.
No. I'm just like listening to you talking, and the thing that was popping into my head is my recent insights as to what went on during World War I and Churchill and Wilson and all that stuff, and like and then my discussions with Richard Poe about the origins of communism and blah and what happened during World War I, and I'm like, it actually makes a lot of sense that Stalin would take over the FDR administration and then fuck the Brits after the Brits fucked Russia like so badly after World War I. Like, and
so here's a question that I ask.
Oh my God, this is all this revenge now. Yeah, exactly. It's
here's where I get into very thin ice, but I got interested in a question which I don't have an answer to, but we know Hitler was nuts and a psychopath and shit like that. A friend of mine who's Jewish, I asked the question about, did he have a tactical reason for the Holocaust? Now, it's often like, ethnic cleansing, a common foe arguments, which I don't find very compelling. And the question is, was there a tactical reason? And this friend reached out and says, there's a 2,500-page biography on Hitler. And he says, I read it. And I go, well, I'm not gonna. And he says, let me tell you, Hitler was anti-Semitic, but he was not bad by comparison to his inner circle. Now, here's the interesting question, back to the question. Did Hitler have a tactical reason for the Holocaust? And no one ever talks about that. And so I asked it, and then one day, a month ago, so I'm reading Fergus O'Connor Greenwood's book, and Fergus said that the multinational banks founded the start and the continuation of the Soviet Union. So the bankers were playing both sides. We know this from, we know this from all sorts of books, right? That they fund both sides. And so that gets me thinking a little bit. And then I read a quote from Putin. And Putin says, I hope that future generations will not be tied down by the shackles of the Rothschilds. And all of a sudden it sort of clicked. If the Rothschilds, which we'll call the mega bankers, were funding the Soviet Union, Hitler, you could imagine, again, accepting he's a psychopath, saying, if we scrub the world of the Jews, we scrub the power structure of the Soviet Union.
Good.
I don't know. I thought,
if
my own understanding of it is pretty simple, perhaps simple-minded. merely that the Weimar Republic was so destructive to German culture and to young Adolf, who had just gotten out of the army, that
Hmm.
that's really what turned him in that direction. And it disturbs me now. I wrote a blog about this on Monday. I guess it's Friday, isn't it? On Monday about the coterie of Jewish lawfare lawyers. I'm Jewish, by the way.
Yeah, we
Uh,
know you're
okay,
a
just
resident.
saying, so your listeners might not
Yeah,
know
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But the coterie of Jewish lawfare lawyers, Norm Eisen, Mark Elias, Michael Bromwich, Michael Sussman, very long list of people, Benjamin Wittes, um, who have been doing tremendous damage to the rule of law in America and to our elections in particular, to
Hmm.
the degree that Americans have lost faith in their own elections. It's hard to imagine anything more damaging uh, to a republic than that. And
Although
I can
lawfare is a
see,
close second.
yeah,
Lawfare.
I can see, let's, for lack of a better term, I can see whatever remains of normie America being extremely resentful of what these people have done.
Mhm.
And I worry about what it's going to mean in the future. And I wonder what you guys think about it and if you paid attention
Uh,
to it.
yeah,
I've
I'll
been
say
worried
that.
about it for years, by the way. Like all the
Mhm.
stuff that's happening in Israel, Gaza, all the stuff. I've been absolutely like I've been
Let's
saying
put
for a long time that
Israel
I'll be
aside for
honest
the
with you.
moment. Let's put Israel aside and just talk
The
about the lawfare guys.
all the I just it's in general. I'm absolutely worried about you know the idea that we could create another set of scapegoats again.
Hmm.
And
To
that's what bothers me. And it's
Well,
like
we're already doing
I'm
it.
at the
Just
point
just
now where when
walk
I
on a
get
college campus. Just walk on a college
to
campus.
dude,
Hmm.
I literally as you were talking earlier, I was looking through my Twitter feed and I was checking and some guy said something about I have a tweet up there about I don't know the British or whatever, and he's like, no, it's all and basically it's all the Jews, and I went block.
oh,
Like guy with 30 followers on Twitter, and and like I'm not listening to it anymore, and I'm not listening to it because I know that it's now being used. And again, I if you have not read Richard Poe's book, how the British created communism and blamed it on the Jews, and goes over all of this stuff about the motivations for Churchill's speech about blaming everything on the Jews in 1920. And that's his inciting incident for the book. And then he goes through the history on both sides of 1920 to explain it. It's fabulous, and it's a fabulous bit of a version of history. And like, and I've gotten to the point with Hitler. I look at Hitler, I'm like, he was set up by the West to go attack Russia, and then in a very simplistic, my very simplistic view of it, then realized that he was getting fucked, and then decided to attack in both directions.
Hmm.
Well, so the other thing
And
that I didn't understand at all.
and that
So when I started,
and
I had a social studies level understanding. I mean,
right,
it was really horrible.
yeah.
So
right.
even what everyone accepts to be true, I didn't know, and that is all the shifting alliances early in the war and all the skirmishes that really were occurring before the war really got rolling. I didn't know about, and I didn't know about Stalin's relationship with Japan and the whole idea that the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor unprovoked and that we didn't know it was coming. Not only
Bardo.
is that's not a conspiracy theory. The record on that is a
It's clear.
encyclopedia thick record that
Yes.
we cracked all their codes. So I read about that too this year. So I
The
threw
Japanese
in,
trade delegation was in was in Washington
that's
to
exactly right. Trying to
to try and work out the trade the oil embargo, which we put on them on purpose. Blah blah.
and then we end up, the diplomats get pulled, and
Don't forget
and all of a sudden there's
War,
an attack, and we didn't see it coming. Of
War
course
Plan
we did.
Orange. We
bullshit.
had it written out like 2 decades
Right.
before it
And
started.
so, but all
and
that stuff. But besides that, the normal stuff, the normal stuff, I didn't even know.
no, again. I've been looking at this stuff from the standpoint of the Treaty of Versailles, reparations, and money for the last few months, and trying to figure out gold revaluation. We wrote about this in the newsletter, and how that and we just traced all that, and I've learned to and I've talked about it in multiple podcasts. I'm going to have to run soon because I got another show in 20 minutes, and
I have to run now. So
right. So I'll just tie a bow on this and say that I've been looking at this from that perspective, and I keep seeing the same playbook over and over again about currency arbitrage, reparations, trying to destroy the Russians, blah 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 blah, and then all this other stuff is just in a sense it's just filling in like the move counter moves that were going on between. In between.
But you can make it counterfactual.
Look up Dawes bonds, Dave. I want you to look up the Dawes bonds after the German hyperinflation. Just go do
I read a
dive
little
on
bit
that.
about it.
Yeah, and how when Hitler in early 33 finally just said, enough, we're not paying the Dawes bonds back anymore. And then 6 months later, FDR had to close the banks and revalue the dollar versus gold, and shit everywhere, dudes. It's crazy how deep this stuff is, and so I'm not in no way matters before my absolving him, but you can start to see why he did some of the things that he did.
Evils of the Soviet Union and the narrative that was used to cover up these evils were monumental.
Yes.
And we somehow convinced our entire nation that the Soviets were valid allies. They weren't bad guys. We had major reporters talking about sunshine and Skittles rainbows over in the Soviet Union. That I just didn't know about any of this. This was a concern. I read The White Pill. I read the Red Thread. I read a bunch of books, and they all were going, holy shit! I've been lied to at a level that's just unimaginable.
Yeah, and to me, at the end of the day, I just see like all the people themselves, the British people, the Americans, the Jews, clearly everybody, they're all fucking victims of all this fucking power politics bullshit, and it just drives me up a fucking wall. All this empire, it's like it goes right back to it goes right back to that line from the great movie Breaker Morant. Well, Peter, this is what comes of empire building. And then they are marched off to be executed, to be scapegoats for the British to get out of the Boer War. And then the final line of the movie is, shoot straight, you bastards, don't make a mess of it. And then they're shot and then the movie ends. Right. And
I remember that movie. It was a good movie.
Oh, it's a great movie. I watch it every couple of years just to remind myself, yeah.
To kind of wrap it up, I was gonna say it's for what Jim and Dave were saying. It's either back to Hitler removing the Soviet power base. It's either A, he had a reason for it to exterminate them all, or what Jim said, it's World War I, Versailles, Weimar Germany, and then it's just kind of just white rage, just hatred. Either or, we've seen that whatever the logic is, whether it's he's really not in charge and there's people around him, like you were saying about FDR, or whether it's just this blind rage, just fuck everything kind of teenage angst. They both are things that today you could say it's either, retarded neo-Nazis, or you could have the argument of like, well, Mayorkas is Jewish and therefore he is, regardless. Like, we're seeing both scapegoat reasonings happen again, and that's something to stay aware of. But then the other thing is talking about everything, the shifting alliances and the narratives. In a weird, fucked up way, I do kind of see it as optimism inducing, in that the monoliths in front of us now are monoliths because that's the narrative being told to us. We've seen in the past that there's no honor, it's all shifting sands. And because of that, it doesn't have to go down this route of climate change, woke, transgender as Satan, fucking faggoty pedophilia. Is it can go a different way. They'll just flip the narrative, because that really says is that they're all psychopaths and they have no alliances anywhere, which in an odd way is actually
I have another great book for you. I have a brilliant book, Jonathan Turley's latest, the Indispensable Right, is a riveting, scholarly, you don't get those two together very often, riveting story of the battle for free speech since the founding fathers. It's phenomenal. I gotta go.
Yeah, no, we'll wrap it up.
Always fun. Yep. By the way, one last
Good
thing.
To see you all, as always.
Hitler had a tactical reason to attack. A tactical reason for the Holocaust doesn't mean he wasn't a psychopathic, crazy fuck, right?
Yeah,
you got
absolutely.
to make sure that's crystal clear, right? But the question is, did he have a tactical reason? That's a separate issue.
For everybody watching,
Gotta go.
please go follow all these guys
always.
on Twitter, all their Substack, all their Patreons. All those links are in the description. Gentlemen, thank you as always, guys. Thank you for watching.
Bye.